Barrels of ink have been written and poured out over this passage from St. Matthew that we heard this morning. The place of Peter in the church. The arguments over his job description have been coming down the ages and causing splits in the Christian community over the years. But I think it's very clear when we hear that first reading today what Jesus was saying. In the first reading we heard about a man named Shebna, who was the doorkeeper for the king. He was the person who really had influence because he could introduce people to the king or keep them from contact. And that is what Jesus is saying to Peter. I want you to make people aware that they can be in contact with my Father. And over the course of the years, Peter's leadership led to various kinds of organization in the Christian community. We need organization. It develops in all of our lives, from the family to the school to the workplace. But it's always for a goal. And the goal of the Christian community under the leadership of Peter and his successors down through the ages has been the same goal that Jesus had, to make his Father's love known to the world. We say the first sacrament is baptism, but that's not really true. The first sacrament is Jesus himself. For a sacrament is something that we can experience, which leads us to something which is more difficult for us to comprehend or invisible. And Jesus is the physical, visible manifestation of his Father and his Father's love. Philip, he said, if you see me, you see the Father. But Jesus revealed the Father to us not so much by what he told us, but by what he did. When he saw the sick, he healed them. And the dead were raised to new life. That's how Jesus revealed the love of God to us, by the deeds of Jesus, by the deeds of God. And the church is really the second sacrament. The Christian community is the sacrament of Jesus. In our world and in our time, we are continuing to do what Jesus did. We heal, we feed, we take care of the needs of others, we bring people new life. Or rather, Jesus does it through us. And for this, we need organization. And down through the centuries, the Christian community has organized and reorganized itself in order to fulfill the calling to be the disciples of Jesus, the sacrament of Jesus in the world. This binding and loosing is really a way of saying that, Peter, you're in charge of the doorway. And you are the head of the Christian community, but all the Christian community is responsible to introduce the love of God to their world. In a few weeks, we will hear in chapter 18 of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus saying the same thing to the rest of the community. When you forgive, God forgives. When you withhold forgiveness, I withhold forgiveness. He's saying, you are my experience to your world. But Peter, after he heard this, Jesus introduced the fact that when you are my disciple, you're going to have to suffer for it, as I suffered in fulfilling my role. And Peter pulled back from this and didn't want to do it. And I think we do the same. Because to be a true disciple of Jesus, to mirror him and therefore his Father's love to the world, is going to be costly. And so we have a tendency to pull back. But let's remember, we are disciples of Jesus not because we chose to be. Jesus said, you did not choose me, I chose you. And all of us have responded yes. We are willing to make the Father's love known to the world by what we do, by feeding, by healing, by raising up people who are bowed down, by forgiving those who have offended us. And we need to do this not just personally, which I think is the way most of us have looked at it over the years. But we have to do it as a group, as a church, and we say we are a Christian nation, so we have to do it as a nation, as a people. Look at all the healing and the feeding and the helping and the raising up that is our responsibility right now at our borders, among the sick of our nation who have no way of getting care, for all the people who are suffering. This is our responsibility as Christians to reach out to these people, and we have to do it in a political way, in an organized way, because we live in a political society which puts us in a democratic situation where we do have control over our leadership, or we should have, perhaps because we have backed off from our responsibility towards that system. I'm convinced that there is a misprint in the gospel, in the New Testament. We're told that the last meeting of Jesus with the church, with his disciples, at that meeting he told them, "Go, tell the world, the whole world, the good news of my Father's love." I don't think that's what Jesus said. I think Jesus said, "Go, show the world the good news by the way you carry my Father's loving work and care to your world." To be a disciple of Christ is not to be something, it is to do something. There's no such thing as a virtual disciple of Jesus.